The purpose of these lessons is to show you the logic behind the most basic Chinese characters, beginning with the simplest pictograms, and later combining these elements to create more complex characters. Today's lesson is only one character, but an extremely important one, based on the cowrie shell from the previous lesson. It began life as a simple pictogram of a person walking along a road who comes upon a cowrie shell and picks it up. The characters pronounce second tone, de, and sometimes third tone, de, and it can even be an unstressed neutral tone, de. It means to get, obtain, acquire, but lends itself to a host of uses. As this is a split sound character, we'll begin with the third tone, de pronunciation, which is used as an auxiliary verb, meaning can, may, or must, from the idea that something is to be obtained. Notice the similarity with English, I've got to do this, and I've got this to do. In both cases, I've got indicates something must be done sooner or later. So it should be unsurprising that Chinese de, meaning to get or obtain, can be extended this way. This usage, however, is more common in the northern Chinese dialects, such as Beijing. The southern dialects tend to use 需要, or simply 要 instead. 她得小心, she must be careful. 你得本人去, you have to appear in person. Now we move on to the second tone, de pronunciation, which is by far the more common. In lesson 14, I mentioned the phrase 不宜 at the end of an expression indicating the action or feeling does not stop, such as boundless happiness, irrepressible excitement, non-stop praise. At the time, I had no examples, but now I can give two. 开心不已, enjoying oneself immensely, having a great time, literally, happy non-stop. And 恼怒不已, irritated, furious, literally, irritated to no end. So, from these examples, we can see that 已 means to stop or finish, which helps to understand the expression 不得已 in this next sentence. 我找地主是不得已的. I had no choice but to go find the owner. The expression translates word for word as cannot get it to stop, meaning, of course, there was no end to it. The pressure wouldn't let up. I had no other choice. Here's a double negative, 不得不, also meaning one is obliged to do something. Literally, cannot not. 你不想卖, 可是你不得不卖. You may not want to sell it, but you must. If you cannot not do it, it means you must do it. Two negatives naturally become a positive. English does the same in such sentences as, the outcome was not unexpected. In other words, it absolutely was expected. Our next sentence has 不得 at the end, another way to express what cannot occur. 地是国家的, 买卖不得. The land belongs to the government and cannot be bought or sold. Another example, 两国之间的事, 大意不得. International matters must not be handled carelessly. From the notion of obligation, I'll now give some examples with the straightforward meaning of obtain or acquire. 不得人心的君主, an unpopular monarch. Literally, a monarch who hasn't earned the heart or support of the people. This next sentence has two 的 expressions, 使得 meaning to cause or make, and 不得人心。他的言语使得他不得人心。His way of speaking makes him unpopular. Here's another useful 3-character expression for adding emphasis. 子女打父母是不得了的事。Children beating their parents is a very serious matter. You will recall that 了 in lesson 14 represents an infant completely swaddled in cloth, literally all wrapped up, giving rise to the meaning of finish or end. As in the expression 没完没了, referring to a situation that seemingly never ends. So, 不得了 simply means endless, limitless, referring to something very seriously wrong, or at the other extreme, endlessly good. Here are 2 positive examples. 他的电话使我开心得不得了。Her phone call made me extremely happy. 她的男朋友人好得不得了。Her boyfriend is a really good guy. Notice the use of 人, meaning an individual's character. 他的人好 or 他的人不好。More importantly, did you notice that we are now using 3 different characters pronounced with neutral tone 的? When I studied Chinese 50 years ago, there was not always a clear distinction between these characters. But now, the Ministry of Education has set down a standard usage for each of them, depending on where they occur. The first, 的, is used for possession, my, your, his, or relative pronouns such as who, which, or that in English. It comes before nouns. 我大哥的朋友. The second 的 is used with adverbial expressions modifying a verb. 心事重重地走. The third 的 is today's entire lesson, used after verbs or adjectives and before their result or degree. 背书背得不好. So, the examples given above are considered adjectives. 开心得不得了 and 好得不得了. Now we have more examples of 得, meaning to gain or acquire. 他从不在意个人的得失. He never gives a thought to personal gain or loss. 下个月我一日也不得闲. Next month, I won't have even one free day. 得闲 literally is to gain leisure time. 他是我国得力的大使. He's a competent ambassador for our country. 得力 implies that this person brings strength to his or her position. 你好得意是不是? You're really pleased with yourself, aren't you? If you are 得意, you've gained what you set out to gain, so you're satisfied. And one more example. 我看完您的书的心得. What I learned from your book. My takeaway from your book. Literally, what my mind gained. Next, we're going to look at a very common structure requiring the use of 得, called resultative verb compounds. As the name suggests, after the verb must appear a specific result. I'll start by giving you various topics and results relating to them. These are not sentences yet, only topics to be commented on later. 架子拖走. 电脑开动. 心事想开. 古玩买成. 书看完. There are two types of so-called resultative verb compounds. Actual, meaning actually accomplished, and potential, meaning affirmative or negative possibility. First, let's look at the situation and describe what actually happened, using 了 if it occurred and 没 if it did not. 架子拖走了. The rack was dragged away. 走了 is the result of dragging. 架子没拖走 or 没有拖走, the rack was not dragged away. 电脑开动了. The computer started up. 动了 is the result of attempting to start it. 电脑没开动. The computer did not start up. 心事想开了. One's troubles were put out of mind. 心事没想开. One's troubles were not put out of mind. 古玩买成了. The antique was purchased. 古玩没买成. The antique was not purchased. 书看完了. The reader has read the book. 书没看完. The reader has not finished the book. As for making questions, study this next topic, its interrogative pattern and the yes and no answers. All of the above examples follow this same pattern. 正门打开. The question is, 正门打开了没有? Was the front door opened? The affirmative answer is 打开了. Yes, it was. The negative answer is 没有打开 or 没打开. Remember, 有 is optional with 没. Now, here's the structure of the potential forms, both positive with 得 and negative with 不. 架子拖着走. It's possible to drag the rack away. 得 is the hoped-for result we want to obtain. 架子拖不走. It's not possible to drag the rack away. 电脑开得动. The computer can be started. 电脑开不动. The computer cannot be started. 心事想得开. One's troubles can be put out of mind. 心事想不开. One's troubles cannot be put out of mind. 古玩买得成. It's possible to purchase the antique. 古玩买不成. It's not possible to purchase the antique. 书看得完. The reader is able to finish the book. 书看不完. The reader is not able to finish the book. Here's our sample topic again. 正门打开 and how to change it to a question. The long question pattern is 正门打得开打不开. Interestingly, the short question pattern reverses positive and negative. 正门打不打得开? The affirmative answer is 打得开. The negative answer is 打不开. After all that grammar, we can look at a few more examples, all of which are commonly used in the negative. I'll begin with a simple phrase from lesson 33, 了事, meaning to put an end to a matter. These next 4 sentences contain this same sense of 了事. in the phrase 不了, meaning unable to put an end to, cannot manage to achieve something. 他回不了家. He can't make it home. Literally, he cannot manage to go home for whatever reason. 大不了我们不去. At worst, we won't go. Literally, it cannot be bigger or more serious than us not going. 人人少不了行动电话. People cannot do without their cell phones. Literally, people cannot lack their mobile phones. 我的生日少不了你. On my birthday, you have to be there. Literally, the celebration cannot lack you. Each of the next 8 examples have a different negative result. 背不完的生字. Too many vocabulary words to memorize. Remember that 生 here means unfamiliar words. 我叫不出他的名字. I couldn't for the life of me recall his name. Literally, I was unable to call it out. 他的父母教不动他. Her parents can't get her to listen. Literally, call her and get no movement on her part. A common response from a teenager. 他出手打我. 我闪不及. He threw a punch at me, and I couldn't dodge it. Literally, I couldn't succeed in avoiding the blow. 我的腰大夫一直看不好. The doctor has not been able to successfully treat my back problem. 动手术时我看不下去. During the surgery, I couldn't stand to keep watching. The speaker was probably the husband of a woman having a cesarean section. He was there, but the queasiness got to him. Notice that Chinese used to only be written and read from top to bottom, up, down. So the idea of 看下去 is to continue reading, watching, or any action for that matter. In English, we would probably use the preposition on. Go on reading, go on watching, to express continuation. 重要的事是急不得的. Important matters or events cannot be rushed. And finally, our last example is referring to making change, breaking a large $2,000 bill into smaller parts. A 2,000 New Taiwan dollar bill is an actual denomination. 2000元我找不开. I can't make change for a $2,000 bill. Here is our color chart with today's only character, 的, 得, and 的. Here's a recap of today's lesson. 1. The pictogram 的 is the depiction of a hand picking up a cowrie shell along the road. That simple act gives Chinese grammar an extremely useful character to express obligation and possibility, somewhat like the English word get, which is one translation for 的. 2. The third tone pronunciation 得 is more common in the speech of Northern Chinese people. Southern Chinese speakers, such as people in Taiwan, tend to prefer other expressions such as 需要 or 要 for this meaning. But don't worry, 得 is understood everywhere. 3. I have introduced dozens of new expressions using second tone 的, including 不得已, meaning to have no choice but to do something unwillingly. 不得不, also meaning must, to have to do something. 4. 不得 can be found at the end of a phrase, also meaning it cannot or should not happen, as in 大意不得. 5. The emphatic 不得了 can stress either good or bad situations. When it appears before a noun, it's usually negative and very serious. 不得了的事. When it appears after an adjective, it's usually very positive, as in 他人好得不得了. 6. I also put the 3 characters pronounced neutral tone 的 in a table to show how they're used. 1 used before nouns, 1 before verbs, and 1 used after verbs or adjectives to show extent or result. 7. Examples of 得 meaning to gain or acquire include 得失 gain or loss, 得闲 have free time, 得力的 competent, 得意 pleased or proud of oneself, 心得 what a person has learned from an experience. 8. The final portion of today's lesson concerns resultative verb compounds, or verbs with their result attached at the end. It's a unique feature of the Chinese language and not always easily translatable into English. So I would recommend going back to that section and reviewing each example. Now you will find a short quiz on double, triple character, and longer expressions. Answer using only the characters learned so far. Thank you for watching and listening.